Welcome to the Perfectly Flawed podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. For those that don't know you, would you like to give a bit of an overview of who you are?
Hey everyone. Obviously, I'm Brenden Hall. I'm a three-time gold medalist Paralympic swimmer, four-time Australian representative for the Paralympics, and a few World Championship titles. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, awesome. How did you fall into swimming?
Ooh, how did I fall? Not so much fall into swimming. I think I was kind of just thrown into the pool when I was very young by mum and dad. They loved going to the beach, I think, and they loved spending time in the water. So I think the whole idea of me getting into swimming was me just being water safe, as you want to do, making sure that I can hold my own when we did go to the beach. And I think from there, I just sort of started to develop a little bit of love and enjoyment, and worked my way through the learn to swim squads, whichever they were back then, like starfish, jellyfish to dolphin and shark or whatever. I can't remember now. It's a while ago. And yeah, I didn't really see myself swimming in the future. You know, really everyone's got dreams and aspirations, and I was sort of stuck with it, and it's just something that I've always loved.
Yeah, awesome. What do you think? People always sort of talk about this pull in terms of they're just like pulled or drawn to swimming. What is that for you?
That's a good one. I think for me, I'm not really essentially like pulled or like drawn to swimming. For me, it was more the fact that I enjoyed swimming before I lost my leg. So I lost my leg at a really young age to chickenpox and most of my hearing as well. And from that point on, when I woke up in hospital, I one of the main things that I wanted to do was just sort of get back in the water. I just wanted, I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why, but I just distinctively remember there was a few things that I wanted when I woke up in hospital, and getting back in the water was one of them. Not necessarily to swim as such, just to sort of be in contact with the water itself. And I think that was kind of like my, I guess, being drawn to it. And then later that year, it was the same year I came out of hospital in 2000. It was because I think I was in the water and I sort of started learning to swim again. I'd start from scratch because I lost my leg. It sort of opened my eyes a little bit as to what you sort of can and can't, like your capabilities are as a person. And then I was exposed to the Paralympics after the Sydney Olympics in 2000. And it all of a sudden, you, as a young kid with a missing leg, who all of a sudden thinks that there's nothing out in the world for him to do, because you will immediately think yourself as inadequate and you don't have the ability to do things in life. But you then all of a sudden see people exactly like you representing, your country and countries around the world and winning medals, and you all of a sudden have this realization that, there is something out there for me. Like I can have dreams and aspirations, and nothing can really hold me back from that. And so from that point on, I don't think I ever really looked back on what happened to me or my disability, and I sort of didn't let it stop me. And I just all of a sudden I was like, I had this dream, and I thought I'd try and chase that dream, I guess. And that's kind of how it went from there.
Yeah, which is pretty cool that now there is so much exposure to people of all different backgrounds and cultures and different capabilities, and people that are able-bodied and not able-bodied, to be able to see them on TV for people that are growing up to look up to. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think I've been in Paralympic sport since 2007 now. I had my first games in 2008 when I was 15 years old. And just the exposure, and like you look at it on a graph over time, and what people can be exposed to, and the attitudes that it can change along the way for, not just people with disabilities, but like different religions, cultures, ethnicities, all that sort of stuff. It really has an impact on letting people know that there is thing you don't like there are things out there in life that you can do, and nothing can really hold you back, and there are no barriers to what you can achieve. It's just as long as you have a crack at it, that's all that really matters. So yeah, I think it's been really great over the last few years to sort of see that sort of impact all of a sudden that, it's sort of slowly becoming more mainstream. We're not like at that equal point yet, but it's exciting to see how it'll turn out in the future because it is just getting bigger and bigger as we go along.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think for you was, do you think sport was like a safe place for you? I mean, you sort of touched on initially that you wanted after your surgery waking up that you wanted to go back into swimming. That's something that you distinctively remember. Do you think that sport was, and swimming in a sense, a safe place for you where you felt like everybody else?
Yeah, you've pretty much nailed that point on the head there. For me, like early on, once I definitely got back into it, to consider myself like normal. So like now I consider myself normal. No, there's no question about it. I'm a proud Paralympian, and I'm missing my leg. I'm missing a fair bit of my hearing, but that's who I am as a person, and I fully accept that. And I wouldn't change anything about it. But when that first period, probably a year after I lost my leg, to sort of see myself on an equal playing field as my mates. So it was really hard to kind of just sit and watch them all, play footy and tackle each other and have fun and run around without really injuring themselves. And I sort of was a little bit envious of all that and kind of felt a bit down because, I couldn't contribute. I couldn't have that sort of fun. And I didn't want to get into that scenario. If I did have fun with them, I didn't want to injure anyone with my prosthetic. So being in the water for me was like an escape, and it took away all of the limitations that being on land imposes on you. So once we were in the water, it was like it's free for all. We're all the same here. You've got to work out how to get from one end of the pool to the other. And unfortunately, not everyone's the strongest of swimmer when you're in primary school or early on in high school. So to know all of a sudden that I was able to, I think, for lack of a better word, beat my classmates in a 25-meter swim. I was like, yeah, I'm normal. This is like normal for me. There's nothing holding me back. It's an even playing field, and that's I think what early on really helped me to sort of overcome the fact that like nothing is really impossible. Just that if you actually have the correct mindset, you can kind of just go about and do whatever you want to do, because there are no limitations to whatever there are only the limitations that you put on yourself. And at the end of the day, only you're responsible for what you're holding yourself back from. So I was really grateful that sport kind of brought that enjoyment back to my life and actually made me realize that, having a disability isn't a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, because you find out who you are as a person and you overcome challenges a hell of a lot easier. And so I was very grateful for the fact that my parents allowed me to continue swimming at that age, because there's no way in hell I'd sort of be where I am today if I hadn't continued swimming.
Yeah, it's amazing how powerful sport can be. And obviously, you had that sort of, you lost your leg and your hearing. That wasn't something you were born with. That sort of happened early on in your childhood. How did you then learn to accept yourself again? Because obviously there has to be that sort of transition going from where you were before to where you are now. How was that transition for you? How long did that take? How did you sort of learn to accept that this is who you are now?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say it was instantaneous, that's for sure. So obviously, really briefly, it was pretty much Christmas of the year 1999. Caught chicken pox, unfortunately, which caused a DVT, deep vein thrombosis, or blood clot, in basic terminology, in my lower right limb. And it was in one of the main veins that goes straight back to your heart. And in order to fix that, they usually put blood thinners in, and hopefully it sort of does the job, clears it all out, and you're sort of good to go. But whatever they were doing, it wasn't working, and it was actually making my condition worse. And in the process of trying to clear the clot, they lost me for about 27 and a half minutes. So Um, Eventually they got me back, and they gave my parents a tough decision. It was like, look, we can keep trying to clear the clot and possibly risk his life again. We might not be able to get him back, or we can just amputate it and be done with it. And thankfully, as a tough decision it was, I think mum and dad made the right decision back then. Otherwise, I definitely would not be here at all today. And I was in hospital. I was like, no, it's fine. When I woke up, I was like, it's going to grow back. We're going to be sweet. We're going to be all good. Don't worry. It's going to grow back. And sometimes when I was literally at the point for a few months early on, probably that first month in hospital after I lost it, I was like, nah, it's only going to grow back if dad stays with me each night. I know if dad stays with me tonight, it's going to grow back a little bit more. I think it took them at least a week and a half to finally convince me that, look, mate, we've had to take your leg away. It's not coming back. I feel like that's a really difficult thing to explain to a 6-year-old. But the good thing is, being a 6-year-old, you kind of like, okay, my leg's not coming back. You cry about it for one night, and then the next morning you wake up not caring about it, and like, all right, who's bringing me some ice cream? But once I got like moving around and everything, I was a lot happier because I liked being outdoors and moving around as a kid. But there, for that first year, when I eventually got out of hospital a couple of months later and sort of went back to school in a wheelchair to start with, it was like tough because I was in a wheelchair. I had classes upstairs, and I'm like, I just sort of felt inadequate as a kid because I wasn't running around like all my mates were. I couldn't, go up in the playground and go down the slide backwards because that was a cool thing to do. So I think that first year it was just a lot of trial and error. And the more I had the error, the more difficult it kind of become to bounce out of it and get back to it. And that's why I was lucky I was able to get back into swimming, because then the error no longer really mattered to me. I sort of thrived on the error because I knew if I could do it in the pool, well, I can do it on land. And that mindset kind of took over that, okay, there's no point, having a whinge about it, crying about it. So, mum and dad were always like, we'll just get up and try again. They sort of never said stop or anything, which I'm really thankful for. They just sort of they'd laugh and be like, okay, okay, he's really hurt now. We'll help him up and get him going. But it was more of a fact that they just didn't want to see me stop trying. I think they figured that the more I challenged myself and the more I overcame those challenges, the more likely I'm not really going to think of myself with a disability and then just sort of get on with life. And I think it kind of worked. I might have had a few injuries along the way, and I might have broken a few legs in the process, but let's say mum and dad weren't too happy about the leg breaking. But yeah, I think I was really grateful for the fact that they did let me do that trial and error, because it got me back to feeling normal, like a regular kid, and wanting to, get out and have fun as much as I could. Otherwise, I think if they sort of stopped and sheltered me, I don't think that would have helped me at all.
Yeah, and we sort of touched on earlier too about how there's so much diversity out there now that we can see. Was there someone for you that you looked up to and was like, I want to be like that?
Good question. Obviously, Paralympics weren't as mainstream early on back then as they are now. So, if you turn around and ask a kid today, like, oh, in a wheelchair or any upcoming para sport, like, oh, they probably, could rattle off Dylan Alcott's name off the top of their tongue really easily, because that's what we've been striving for, that extra equality. For me, it was the fact that I saw in Sydney 2000, it was the Australian flag bearer Brenden Burkett, and he lived and still does live, on the Sunshine Coast. And so I was exposed to him in 2000, and I saw him win a medal for Australia with one leg pretty much exactly the same like disability as me. And from that point on, I was like, oh, so this guy's got one leg. He's represented Australia at multiple games. He's won a few medals. He's been the flag bearer. Oh, that's me. That's what I want to do when I grow up. And so like from early on, I probably to him, I was like, okay, I looked up to him. And then also, but just seeing someone like Ian Thorpe and Grant Hackett do what they did early on, I was like, okay, swimming, let's give it a crack. And I think that's why I became a distance swimmer, purely because I loved what those sort of guys did. And I think that's what kind of helped me as a youngster. And I just wanted to sort of be like my heroes, I guess, in a way. And because I saw Brenden Burkett, win a medal for Australia, that's sort of what kick-started and ignited my dream, really. And I was grateful for that, because I think if I hadn't seen something like that, yeah, it would have definitely impacted where I sort of ended up in sport or in life. So I think the more we expose that diversity, the greater impact it's going to have on all those minorities out there. And for myself, that's one thing that I'm grateful for.
Yeah, and it's so cool that you were able to see someone like that on TV and say, that's so cool, he can do that, so can I. How does it make you feel now to know that you're that person for somebody else?
It's weird. It's so weird. It happened like early on too. It was just after Beijing, and one of the guys who I ended up being on the team with in 2016, he made the Rio team with us. And, he saw me from an early age and compete in London. And he was like, okay, I'm going to try and catch this guy and catch up with him, and I want to race him and stuff. And so like we met early, like 2009 or whatever. And it's to know that like, oh yeah, you had an impact on me as a kid, like 4, 5, 6 years ago. And it's like really why I ran. Even some of the young guys on the team this year, they were like, oh yeah, you were one of my idols. Like, I'm like, what do you mean was one of your idols? Like, surely I still am, hopefully. But no, it's just this weird feeling, because I don't really think of myself as being an idol, or I don't set out to be a mentor or role model. So when someone does come up to you and goes, oh yeah, I didn't know how to tell you this, but you really, you played a role in like helping me go on and achieve my dream. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool, thank you. I don't know how to respond to that. I might have played a little role, but at the end of the day, you made the choices, you did the work, you got here. So it's kind of cool to all of a sudden know that you're, sparking that little bit of inspiration for kids that are coming through these days. It's something that I think I'm always going to find really weird, because obviously that's not the reason why I got into swimming or why I did swimming. So that's another thing that like I'm purely in swimming and the sport for like my love of it and my enjoyment of being in the water. And so all of a sudden, so like that's the main bit of cake for me. And I'm like, okay, if I've managed to ignite that passion for someone else, well then it's kind of like, oh, we'll just sprinkle the ice, put the icing on, and a couple 100,000s on top. That's kind of like, it's a nice sentiment, and it's really good to know. And as long as I know that I'm grateful for the fact that I can kind of have that ability to ignite those fires, because everyone should have the chance to have a dream and aspire to be something or someone, because it's kind of like you want to have the dream, and if you have the dream, then you have something to follow. And it's scary at the same time, because now I've got a lot of guys just following me and chomping at my heels, and I'm like, we're gonna come and get you, we're gonna take your place. And I'm like, well, that's a bit scary now. I am getting towards the end of my career, so just hold off a little bit longer for me, please, guys. So yeah, it's a weird feeling, I will admit that.
Yeah, and you said that your first Olympics was Beijing when you were 15. What was that experience like for you?
I can sum it up in one word, which was the only word that was in my vocabulary back then. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. If you go back and watch my post-race interview from my one swim in Beijing, yeah, I really loved that word, awesome. It was so bad. No, the best way I could describe it was, you're a kid at a theme. You go into that environment, and I was 15, and you are literally a kid at a theme park and a candy store rolled into one, and you just don't know what to do next. You don't know when to stop or which ride to pick. Am I going to have chocolate? Am I going to have ice cream? Do I get a cook? It's a lot to process for a 15-year-old, and yeah, you honestly just feel like you're on this ultimate high for the whole 2 weeks you're there, and it's really hard to sort of come down. But sometimes I managed to. I only had the one swim, and I absolutely blitzed it back then. I didn't medal or anything, but I swam a PB. I swam a PB in the heat, PB'd in the final. I qualified first fastest for the final in Paralympic record time. So I well and truly exceeded my expectations in 2008. It would have been lovely to come away with a medal, but when you're the youngest in the field by about 6 years, you kind of think, unfortunately, age and wisdom, probably strength as well, is going to overpower a young 15-year-old. So I was really grateful for that experience because it taught me a lot. And learning how to control your emotions is one of the important things as a competitor to sort of know. And it was just an awe-inspiring, eye-opening moment. And it's one games that I'll never forget because, yeah, everything was just, whoa, for me. And that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of describing it. And the next thing that I was going to ask, which you've kind of touched on already, is what sort of things did you take away from that experience that you've been able to apply in London, Rio, and then even Tokyo?
Yeah, so I think I definitely was able to apply it in London and Rio. It's just that when you want to like compete at that level and that intensity, you have to know when to turn it on and when to turn it off. So you know how to spark just the right amount of excitement at the right time in order to get the best out of it and perform the absolute best. And so I was able to do that in London. First up, we had the relay, the 4x100 freestyle relay, and I was really lucky to be able to swim in the heat team. I'm obviously not a sprinter by any means. I'm a distance swimmer all the way, like 400 and above. So, to be able to swim the 100 freestyle in London was fantastic. And to swim the relay was even better because obviously swimming is individual, but team based in a way where like you have all that support staff around you and your coach. So when you're up there, it's not just yourself. But then when you get to swim as a relay team, you all of a sudden have this greater sense of passion and camaraderie with all your teammates because you want to be able to achieve well with them. So it was really grateful to be able to be part of that relay team and win the gold medal on the first night in the 4x100 freestyle relay. And that kind of like, okay, massive high on that first night. And then I had to wait 3 days before my main event. So like it was on, and then you had to turn off, focus, and worry about the next few swims. And then I had to really turn it on again for my 400 freestyle, which I was really lucky to do, and came away with a world record and a gold medal, my first individual gold medal. And it's a moment I'll never forget because you're on that middle dais and all that work has finally paid off. And my family and my girlfriend was up at the time, now my wife was up in the stands. So, to have everyone that mattered most be there to sort of see that first moment, it's, fantastic. But you've still got a few swims to go, and so you enjoy it. And the minute you step off that dais and the medal comes off, you turn it off again, and you're in ready mode and preparation mode, and then you just make sure you turn it on again next time you come out. So that was something that worked really well in Rio because I sort of had very spaced out swims. I had my main event on day 2. I had one of my other events on day 5, and then my last event was like day 9. So it was very spaced out, and I was able to turn it on each time, swim a good time, and come away with a medal. So I was pretty happy with that. It's just that you kind of learn to sort of balance that emotion, and this year I learned that as much as you think you're in control of your emotions and your thoughts, sometimes it's not always the case, and you think your mind is strong, but at the end of the day, there could be cracks and things slip through, and not everything's going to go your way at the end, and you can be as physically ready as possible, and if something just doesn't go your way, sometimes it's really hard to recover mentally. And I think I found that out this year. Like, I had my main event on day 1 this time around in Tokyo, and I was like, okay, well, we got to apply everything that I've learned over the last 12 years. And I thought I was able to apply it, and unfortunately it just didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. And I think because it affected me that much, I thought I was over it and through it, and I learned on it. Unfortunately, I think it just kept stewing in my subconscious even more as the meet went on, and it sort of came to the point where it was kind of too much for me. And yeah, I think it's just trying to back up and be better and do better, and reset for each swim, unfortunately just didn't work for me this time, which was a bit disheartening. And yeah, you come away from a meet that you're not really entirely happy with, and fortunately that's just the way the world works sometimes. Like I said, post interview for Tokyo this year, shit happens. Unfortunately it just happened at the wrong time for me, and yeah, it was just a bit unfortunate. But I'm always learning as I go along, so I was still very grateful for the experience. And it's my 4th game, so it's an achievement in itself. So you try and make sure when you look back and you have that reset, you take the positives from it and try to focus on them more than the negatives.
Yeah, and it can be a really hard thing to do as well. But what was that sort of thought process like? Obviously it wasn't necessarily the meet or the competition or the games that you wanted. What sort of the thought process after that first race? What sort of goes through your mind? And then, as you said, that you managed really well in Rio was being able to turn on, turn off when you needed to. How did you sort of do that in Tokyo? What did that look like?
Yeah, so obviously in Rio, was my main swim was day 2, and it was my main event, and we wanted to make sure I was firing, ready to go. I think I was just so caught up in excitement and ready to get out there and sort of kill it. Well, I was a bit younger back then, so my body could kind of take a thrashing here and there, and that's what I kind of just did, just went out and killed it. Whereas this time I was like, okay, I'm not as young as the rest of the field anymore. I have to be a bit smarter about this. So we tried a different approach and tried to swim it a bit smarter. Unfortunately, I think I just left it a bit late to do anything about it. And but that's just the way the dice is going to roll sometimes. And I was like, okay, I looked at it. I came out. I took the positive from it, the fact that I, swum the fastest time I'd swum in 4.5 years. So I think that's a massive positive in itself, that I hadn't been down there around that time for a while. So gave me an indication and an idea that whatever I had been doing over the last couple of years has worked the way that we wanted it to work. Unfortunately, it just didn't all come together perfectly. So I was like, okay, I'm fit, my body's working. So I was like, we'll take that positive and put that into my next swim, because I know all my other swims are going to be shorter. So I won't have to worry about focusing on, counting laps or anything like that. It's just up, back. That's all you have to worry about. And, make sure your technique's perfect. And you just sort of go through those processes and mental imagery in your mind of how you want your race to proceed. And, sometimes as much as you do it, it just on the day, it's for me, it just didn't click this time around. So I don't know. It's something I'll have to work with when I get back to chatting with my coach after my break, and massive support network that I've got around me, and like sports scientists and biomechanics, psychologists, and they'll all help me get to the right answer, and I think I'll be able to fix it all up. But yeah, you have all your little processes. So you come back to your room, you shut off, you have a rest, you watch a couple of episodes of your favorite TV show or a TV show or a movie, rest a little bit, recover, refuel, plenty of fuel in the tank. It's just all those like little processes you sort of go through, and that way you get back, okay, I'm feeling good, and you feel on until after you've swum it, and then it's not the way you wanted to swim it. And then after my last swim, I was like to my coach, I'm effing off it. I want out. Like, send me home. I was disappointed in myself. I was like, I'm an effing failure. I need to get out of here. I don't belong on this team. And took a few people to chatting to me to sort of talk me down a little bit. But just because I was that disappointed in myself, I felt like I didn't belong there. So it was a little bit hard to come back from that, because I spent the last 2 years throwing everything that I can at it to make sure that I'm absolute fighting fit shape and to perform at my absolute best. And on paper, I was set to have an absolute blinder of a meet. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way. So when that didn't work out, I didn't take that well. And so I had to have a few talks to a few people here and there to, well, it's not necessarily calm me down, but to sort of remind me of my worth and my actual self-achievement. It's more important sometimes than, a medal around your neck. And I'm still sort of coming to terms with it a bit, but I've also at the same time, I've processed it, I've learned from it. Yeah, I've moved on, and I'm kind of ready for whatever comes next.
Yeah, and it's disheartening when the expectations you went in with aren't met, and it sucks. And we're always our own worst critic when it comes to that sort of thing. So it's really easy to be negative and be really hard on ourselves. And as you said, having a really good support network around you can be vital in those situations. What was that 2 week? Obviously, you would have quarantined, getting back, and sort of now being back for a little while. How do you feel about it now? You've sort of said that you've reflected on it differently and you've processed that. Do you feel differently about it now? Have you been able to take away those positives now compared to then? And can you sort of see a light at the end?
Yeah, I think quarantine kind of did me well in a way, purely because it gave me the time to not have to interact with anyone, answer anyone's questions, because no doubt about it, in my mind, I was a failure. I feel like I let not only myself down, but a lot of people around me down. And I don't think I had the mental strength to answer to those people and, let them know that, hey, I'm sorry I failed you. It's it was pretty tough. Like when I was still over in the village, in the last few days in the village, and to the last few days we had access to the pool, I'd go in and I would purely just go in and have a swim, because it was the only place where I could have to myself. Everything was quiet and I could just escape and not be alone with my thoughts, because sometimes when I caught the bus to the pool in the village, or we all had our own plans and people were still racing, so I had to make sure I'd had my swim done and up in the stands supporting the rest of the team like we all do, and I love being able to do. But there's those slight quiet moments you have on your own, and your mind just has way too many what ifs, and I couldn't move on and process it while I was still there. I was really struggling with that, just because of I had those really high expectations of myself and what I was expecting to come away with, and it didn't happen. And because I was like I said, I felt like I didn't belong there anymore, and so that was tough. And I was only fine when I was in the water on my own, just doing what I love, or if I was with my teammates and cheering everyone on, or with my teammates in my room or eating and stuff like that, where I was constantly occupied. So coming back into quarantine, it kind of like let me slip into my normal routine and, getting back into some work, into some uni work and keeping myself occupied. And then, I was sort of able to go processed all the what ifs. And at the end of the day, I was like, well, it's done. You can't change the past. It's impossible to change the past. No one can do it. The other thing is I look back, I'm like, okay, so there's all those little things there. Okay, that's what we'll take. We'll put that in place for next time, and we'll worry about that when I'm back in the water. So, there's a lot more important things in life than just swimming. Got my wife back home and all that sort of stuff. So that I realized that that's not really at this point in time important. I've got a uni assignment due in 2 days' time. I should probably get my head on that. And I was grateful for that, because I was like, great. It took my mind off everything. I was like, okay, back into my uni mindset. It kept me busy, and I really kind of weirdly enjoyed quarantine. Get up, do everything I wanted to do myself. I could lay back, have a rest, watch some movies. Like, no stress, no pressure, no communication with anybody for a while. I was like, weirdly kind of enjoying it. But then you kind of like, oh, you get to about day 11 and you're like, oh, I could use some human interaction now. It'd be really good. So yeah, now that everything's kind of moved on and processed, I'm kind of like over it, and I'm kind of keen to get onto the next thing now. So it's not really that, but it was weird still being in the village for me, especially even when it came packing, because I've got to the point, packing to come home. I'm always, considering, okay, so where do I put my medals, and do I take them carry on or put them in my suitcase, that sort of stuff. So then when we were packing, leaving the village, that hit me a little bit, because I didn't have to worry about putting medals in anywhere. And I was like, crap. That hit me a little bit, because it just felt weird not packing medals to come home. So that was a little self punch in the gut again. Trying to sleep on the flight on the way home. That comes back to, like, that you become more worried about anything. And yeah, you just find these little things, and all of a sudden realize that there's a much bigger picture out there in life than just having to worry about swimming.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like to try and process all of that. And it's very easy for us to get caught up in basing our value and our worth on what we have or haven't achieved. How do you identify yourself outside of swimming? How do you separate the two? What are the things that make you you without being a swimmer?
Good question. So for me, like, I'm currently a physiotherapy student, so I know that there's a lot of things in place for me after swimming, and I've got a pretty clear idea of what I want to be doing after swimming. So I'm not really like, I don't want to be known as, only as Brenden Hall, the swimmer. Like, that's like not a label you want to get stuck with, because if it's the only label you become comfortable with, then I think that's where you do become really lost. So, I've got a baby, a little fella coming in December, with my wife being pregnant. So, I'll be a dad at some point. There's all these little things I'm like, hopefully I can be seen as like, oh, this guy's versatile. He's, he can do whatever he puts his mind to, and he can take it on no matter what. So I think that's what I kind of, if anyone throws a challenge at me, I'm going to try and take it on. And that's kind of what I want to be known as. It's like, all right, this guy will give anything a crack, whether it's, whether he's been told he can't do it or whether he can do it, he's always going to give it a crack. And that's kind of who I see myself as a person, not really as Brenden Hall, the swimmer. So yeah, I've got to the point in my life where I love swimming. It's what I want to do. I still want to win at all costs, but it's also not, I've also realized that it's not the only thing that defines me in life. There are a lot of other things out there, and even, like school talks are probably one of my favorite things to be able to do, and inspiring that younger generation, because, just some of the questions that come to mind from little kids or even kids in school in general. It's just, I love being able to share that experience and my story. And I also understand that not all kids love school. There was a period where I didn't love school, but then I think there was a point where, I was told that, swimming is not going to be your life. You're not going to make an income off this. You've got to prepare for life after swimming, like now. And that I had that talk when I first made the team at 14, and obviously I was in grade 9, so it's not really like, oh, okay, well, I don't even know what job I want to do yet, let alone what my career after swimming is going to look like. So I was really grateful for the fact that I was learnt and taught about all this stuff really early on, because otherwise I'd be like a deer in headlights, being, what on earth am I going to do with myself? But I've always been pretty level-headed with that sort of stuff, and I think that's what sort of gets me through things the most.
Yeah. Well, firstly, congratulations on becoming a father. That is super exciting.
Thank you.
I don't think any year 9 would be able to wrap their head around the fact that swimming is not going to be your life. You need to figure out something else. Like, well, hold on a second. I just made my first Olympics. Let's take a step
Yes.
back.
Yeah. It's when someone just like, you're in that team meeting, is like, okay, so I got some bad news for you and some good news for you. You've made the Australian swim team. Well done. Bad news. Swimming is not going to be your life. You're not going to make some money off it. Prepare for life after swimming now. And I'm just like, I'm still in school, mate. Like, I don't care about life after swimming. Like,
Yeah.
just let me get through school. So it's really weird.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be. I can tell by the way you talk that your love for swimming is still very much there, still very strong. What are your upcoming goals? What does swimming look like for you in the next few years, short term, long term?
So short term for me, for swimming wise, I think I'm gonna have a crack, and like one of my other, like I love doing open water swimming. I love surf swimming. Love doing that. So I think I'm just going to try and fill up my calendar with a bunch of ocean swims for the next few months. Once I get back in the water, just to sort of, prove to myself that I still love it, because that's something I love being able to do. And from there, we'll get back into some comps, I think, because I want to try and get one more Commonwealth Games under my belt before we decide to finish up. And so like with Com Games being next year in Birmingham, hopefully I can try and have one more crack at that and do some good. And if I'm ready for that, well, then I'll be ready for World Champs next year. I'm not really sure where they are off the top of my head. I do know they're over in probably Europe somewhere, so it'll be like another hard slog of probably 7 weeks being away. So that's short term. Long term, before going into Tokyo, I was always like, well, I think Paris is a good one to finish on. It'll be my 5th games. So I was like, well, I've never been to Paris before, so I think that'd be a cracking one to finish on, especially if we're back to sort of having a bit of travel afterwards. I'd love to be able to go through, see a bit more of Europe and just some of its swimming pools. Something that's kind of always intrigued me, being able to travel around Europe, and hopefully I can finish on Paris the way I want to finish and go out of the sport happy. And then I'll be ready to move on to the next phase of my life. But I think I just would like going to Paris. For me, it would be like fantastic, because I'll be able to introduce, the Paralympic swimming world and the Paralympic world to, my kid or kids, see how we're going. And I think that's what will be the most exciting part about that. And it's something that I will really look forward to. And that I know after Paris will be the time to finish up.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, that's still, like, even now looking back, you still had an amazing career, and the love is still there. So I don't see a reason why not to continue. If the love is there, keep going for as long as it's there. And then as it sort of starts to dwindle down, then that's maybe time to say, maybe it's time to hang up the goggles.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the hardest part for me, because I feel like I'm always going to love swimming. I think it's what it's going to come down to, is how much am I going to love the competitive side of it. And at the moment, I've still got the fire to win. I want to win something. and I've got that drive. Like, I love training every day. I love getting bruised. I love getting battered. I love feeling beaten up. And a lot of people find that's a very weird thing to love. But yeah, I think it's more the fact that it's because it's the challenge. That's why I love it the most. And just seeing how much your body can withhold and how much your mindset is going to hold on to before it decides to give up and give in is what I think love the most about it. And at the moment, I'm not ready to give up or give in. So yeah, we're going to keep having a crack while we can.
Yeah, it's weirdly addictive, that pain, but I think it's the high that you get when you know that you've done it.
Yeah, definitely. Like once you stand on the medal dais, regardless of where it is, you know, it is a very good rush and a high. It's something that like that's the where you end up chasing for another 4 years, and just after having not hit that high, you hit the lowest of lows, and that's where you come out of, and you're like, no, I've still got room. I can have another crack, and I'm definitely going to do that because I want to be able to feel that again at some point.
Yeah, that's so awesome to hear. I like to do 3 questions to finish with. The
Oh, here we
first
go.
one, the first one is, what is something that you're most proud of about yourself?
Oh, wow. Wow. What I'm most proud of about myself. Oh God, what a killer. I think for me, it's definitely the fact that I've been able to, you know, inspire and engage a lot of young ones to get into the Paralympic movement and being aware of the Paralympic movement. And you know, I've have a lot of mates who have older siblings who have quite a lot of kids now, and I got a bulk amount of photos while I was away of all of my mates, like older siblings, taking pictures of like all of their kids in front of the TV watching different parts of the Paralympics. And they're like, this is because of you. And like, I get goosebumps thinking about it now. So I think just more the fact that I've opened up a world of complete, you know, this whole other world for other people to be a part of. And I think that's what I'm actually most proud of.
Yeah, being able to leave that legacy behind and that will stay around for a while.
Yeah, at the moment, I could say I'm most proud of, you know, being able to bring life into this world, but I'm not there yet. So, you know, if you came and asked me in another 4 months, that'd probably be my answer, but we're not there.
Yeah. The next question I have, excuse me, the next question I have is, what is your favorite quote and or the best piece of advice that you've been given?
Oh, favorite quote. So my favorite quote is the one that really resonated with me the most is the only disability in life is a bad attitude. I don't know whose it is or where it came from, but I heard it in 2008, and obviously that's when I first made the team. So I was like, that's going to stick with me. That's what's going to, you know, get kids off their ass in school and get involved in sport, exercise, whatever it is, and get moving. Because at that point in time, I had heard so many excuses from kids, even in high school, like, you know, trying to get out of HPE class, trying to get out of school sports. And it was driving me up the wall because they were all physically able and they were just trying everything in their power to get out of it. Meanwhile, there's people everywhere who would kill to be able to, you know, have 4 perfectly working limbs and a perfectly working body to, you know, run around and, you know, play some touch footy, and they can't do it. So that was one of the sayings that stuck with me the most. And it all came down to, well, all you guys have got bad attitude. That's your disability, because you just don't want to do things. The best piece of advice I've had would probably be when I was a youngster, and you probably touched on it earlier, was the fact that, like, if you love something and are having fun, what better reason do you need to, you know, pursue it, continue doing it? or just do it purely because you love it. And that was swimming, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never heard that quote before. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a bit. Few people have heard it, and a few people haven't heard it. And most of the people who haven't heard it are like, "Oh, that's a good one." And I'm like, that was my reaction to it when I first heard it too. I was like, "This is what disability is in my eyes, because it's not what like you can't do. It's more about what you can do."
yeah. And I mean, if your love for swimming is still there, the open water swims, there's basically no age limit on those. Like you can keep
No,
going. Like there are
I
so
will.
many
I will
older
be.
people in them.
Yeah, that'll be me. I'll be that weekend warrior at the age of 75, still doing the ocean swim somewhere up at Noosa, and they'll be waiting 3 hours for me to get in. I can guarantee you that now.
That's awesome. The last thing I have, is there any tips or advice or anything for those that are listening?
Ooh, any tips or advice? Um, no, not really. I'm not. I've probably already covered it all. Like my advice is like find something you love, find something you enjoy doing, find something that is fun. And the more fun it is, at the end of the day, you actually forget you're doing it, and you just end up doing it. And like, oh wow, like 2 hours has passed. Like what just happened? Um, you know, there will be hurdles at some point in life, and everyone's gonna have to jump over them in order, but like to do whatever they want to do. But at the end of the day, what is life without a little bit of challenge? That's kind of my way of looking at it. Like if there's no challenge, are we really living life at all?
Yeah, I think that is a really important thing to remember. Thank you so much for joining me today and chatting. You've shared a lot of insight into your sporting career and everything you sort of learn along the way, and those challenges, setbacks, positives, and everything in between. So thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you for having me. It's been really fun.